Hello, everybody. This is Joseph P. Farrell with news and views from the Nefarium on Thursday, March 20th, 2025. We're going to take care of the housekeeping first, everybody. Don't forget, tomorrow afternoon, evening, we have the evening vid chat at 5 p.m. U.S. Central Time. That means get your questions and comments in no later than 10 p.m. U.S. Central Time tonight. Don't forget, one submission per customer, per member, and please don't give me a lot of submissions. If you rethink your submission, and don't rethink it and resubmit a bunch of submissions. What you're doing is you're making it kind of confusing for people, including me, to follow when I print things off. So please remember, one submission, no longer than a page. We've had some people getting kind of long, and we need to try and keep it under our 3-hour limit. Now, today's story concerns all of basically the concerns I've had for quite some time about the movement of various states to authorize or recognize gold and silver specie as legal tender. And this is coming right on top of all the news about Doja uncovering this or that amount of fraud, while at the same time we just learned that Doja's uncovered that there are about 14 computers where the government has just been making money on computers, literally adding electronic blips to the monetary stream. So this is highlighting the crunch that we're in this story. I want you to listen carefully to this article. Many of you sent various versions of this article, but I'm going with this one because it highlights the problem. The article's titled, "New Utah Law Allows State Vendors to be Paid in Gold and Silver." And I'm reading from the very beginning of this article and then towards the middle of it. It's not very long, but I think you'll immediately get what my concern is. Quote, "Gold and silver continue to play important roles as monetary assets in global financial markets. And now the state of Utah is embracing precious metals as local currency." And my question is it really, or is it disguising it to look like that's what it's doing? Quote, "On Tuesday, the state legislature passed a bill allowing government vendors to choose to be paid in gold and silver for the first time in America. Bill HB 306, now awaiting signature from Governor Spencer Cox, authorizes the state treasurer to issue a competitive procurement for a precious metals-backed electronic payment platform. This will allow state vendors to opt for payment in physical gold and silver. Representative Kenneth Ivory sponsored Bill HB 306, and Utah State Senator Keith Grover pushed the legislation through the Senate. The state politicians noted that the legislation is the latest evolution in Utah's stance in favor of sound money. In 2011, Utah became the first state to recognize gold and silver as legal tender. Now an electronic payment system will create more flexibility in fractionalizing physical silver and gold." And let me skip to 2 more paragraphs. Last year, Ivory also sponsored legislation that allowed State Treasurer Marlo Oaks to invest up to 10% of the state's rainy day funds in gold. Today, according to Oaks, Utah's gold reserves have grown to $60 million as of the end of this last legislative session. Utah's gold holdings have seen their value significantly increase as the precious metal has been on an unprecedented rally, with prices currently above $3,000 an ounce. And you'll notice what happened very carefully there in that article, particularly with the last two paragraphs, is they dropped all mention of silver. Folks, to me, this is like we're reliving the postbellum period of the aftermath of the war between the states, when all of a sudden silver is no longer money. It gets quietly shunted aside and, sets up the William Jennings Bryan Cross of Gold speech. So what do we have here? Notice, first of all, that they're telling you that we need a fractional payment system. In other words, there's not enough gold to cover all the dollars in circulation at par value. So, in other words, they're going to have to fractionalize the amount of gold that represents a dollar. And that's going to be a very tiny amount. But hey, we're going to back that dollar nonetheless with gold, and in order to do that under this fractionalized system, we're going to have an electronic transfer system. In other words, what they're telling you is you're not going to get a physical medium of exchange. You're going to get electronic blips that will credit X amount of gold or silver to your account. But there's nothing in this bill, at least in this article as far as I can tell, that tells you, the vendor, that you can receive a physical representative of gold, in other words, gold coin or silver coin, in transaction, or a certificate of deposit, a bearer on demand certificate of deposit, for that physical gold or silver in transaction. And they're touting all of this, of course, as being transparent, when in fact, of course, it's going to be the Utah state government that tells you that X amount of gold exists and we're crediting X amount to your account, but you can't have the actual physical gold. Folks, this is a scam. It's a scam to get you to move and accept an electronic transfer system in lieu of cash. And the bottom line is, they're also not telling you that there are different kinds of money in circulation. And by the way, they are correct that ultimately they all boil down to gold and silver, and moving that gold and silver from one vault in a deposit bank to another. And now they're all going to do this on an electronic payments transfer system. What happens when that system suffers an electromagnetic pulse or the electronics go down? You will not be able to accept or receive gold and silver in that system if the system goes down. Folks, they're selling you a bill of goods. I'm adamant on this point. Unless you have physical media of exchange that represent that gold and silver that you can take to that depository or to your local bank and take that certificate of deposit and get in return such and such an amount of gold or silver, you haven't got a system. And the problem that they've admitted to is the fractionalization part, because what they're telling you is that there's not enough gold and silver to cover all the money in circulation. So what they really need to do is simply recognize gold and silver specie as legal tender in transaction, or allow you to transact in gold and silver with a local merchant at whatever rate of exchange you may think necessary. In other words, if that gold ounce in your pocket is worth $3,000, then you should be able to negotiate with someone on a local level for that transaction for X amount of goods or services vis-a-vis that gold. This is not what they're doing. So I have huge concerns. The more the so-called states are telling you that they're moving to sound money, the more I question it. And let's remember the latest part of this scam. They're going to do this at the national level with the so-called sovereign wealth fund, and they're going to do it through cryptocurrencies that are tied to the value of the US dollar. So put all of this together, the gold and silver movements and depositories, electronic transfer systems, a national sovereign wealth fund, and you've got a gigantic, in my opinion, a gigantic pump and dump scheme. And we haven't even begun to talk about how they want to privatize Social Security. Folks, we are watching yet another scheme, and we need to be extremely careful about what's going on. I wish Utah all the best. I know that they're trying to do the right thing, but Utah, get it through your heads. Electronic transfer systems, any form of electronic or digital currency, is not a currency. You must have a physical medium of exchange, and that physical medium of exchange, whatever it may be, must be recognized by law as legal tender. You should not go into a store and be told that your cash is no good, we do not accept cash. That is still legal tender. So, folks, beware of these movements. I'm increasingly skeptical of these state movements for gold and silver bullion depositories because they are missing the all-important step of physical media and convertibility. They're talking the game, but they're not walking the walk. And that, to me, is a sure sign that there is intention to commit massive amount of fraud. They're going to try, in other words, by this mechanism, they're going to try to put people, you and me, into a gold trap. As I said, the fractionalization part of it gives the game away. So that's it for today's news and views from the Nefarium. Don't forget, we do have the vid chat tomorrow. 1 submission per member, and please get your submissions in before 10 o'clock tonight. I've been having a little bit of computer problems, which I hope I've managed to fix before tomorrow's vid chat. So we'll see you tomorrow, everybody. Bye-bye, and God bless. We'll see you on the flip side.